Years back, a boy by the name of Christopher Robin ventured into the 100-acre wood and stumbled upon a peculiar company of creatures: Winnie the Pooh, Piglet, Eeyore, Rabbit, and Owl. These beings were a blend of human and animal characteristics. Christopher formed a bond with them, facing various challenges together, and their companionship blossomed with time. After the passage of numerous years, Christopher eventually confronts a tough choice of parting ways with his companions to pursue his ambition of becoming a doctor in college. With Christopher's absence, Pooh, Piglet, Rabbit, and Owl are left to fend for themselves amidst the harsh winter conditions, leading to extreme starvation that compels them to resort to cannibalism by killing and consuming one of their own, Eeyore. This experience leaves a lasting scar on the group, causing them to develop a deep hatred towards all things human, including Christopher, who they hold accountable for abandoning them in their time of need. Pledging to never communicate with each other again, the group made a pact to forsake their human-like traits and revert to their primal instincts. The story then fast-forwards to 5 years later, revealing a mature Christopher visiting the 100-acre forest alongside his betrothed, Mary, with the intention of reuniting with his former comrades. However, Mary perceives them all as mere figments of Christopher's imagination. Eventually, Christopher hears voices and follows them, leading him to the site where he used to play during his childhood. Perceiving the situation as peculiar, Mary urges Christopher to return with her. Nevertheless, Christopher's curiosity gets the better of him, and he asserts that they are entirely secure. However, moments later, Piglet violently attacks Mary, fatally strangling her with a chain. Filled with fear, Christopher attempts to flee, but he is soon surrounded by Pooh and Piglet, who drag him back into the depths of the forest. Next, we witness Mary during a therapy session, where she confesses to feeling a constant presence when in public or in crowds. Her therapist suggests that she should retreat to a peaceful and secure location to distance herself from the source of her distress. Subsequently, Maria, along with her companions Jess, Alice, Zoe, and Laura, rent a cabin located in the 100-acre woods, and they all decide to refrain from using their phones during the vacation. Meanwhile, Maria's other friend, Tina, loses her way to the cabin and tries to reach the group without success, leaving her feeling uneasy. Her distress intensifies when she encounters Pooh, who begins to chase her relentlessly. Tina seeks refuge in an abandoned factory, but Pooh ultimately finds her and subjects her to a brutal attack, leaving her stripped and lifeless. Meanwhile, Christopher has been taken captive by Pooh at his treehouse, where Pooh taunts him, claiming that he will never be understood by people since he doesn't even comprehend himself. Upon hearing Christopher's story, Pooh becomes overwhelmed with sadness and reminisces about a childhood moment when Christopher promised to always be by his side. However, Pooh's grief quickly turns to rage, and he brutally attacks Christopher with Eeyore's severed tail. In the midst of the violence, Christopher spots Mary's lifeless body in the corner of the room, and Pooh drenches him in her blood, seeking retribution for Christopher's abandonment of their former companions. As night falls, Pooh is distracted by the sound of loud music emanating from the cabin, where Laura is seen relaxing in a hot tub. Pooh and Piglet locate the cabin and render Laura unconscious before abducting her. When she regains consciousness, she discovers herself bound in the middle of a street. Suddenly, Piglet approaches her and places his paw on her, while Pooh begins to accelerate the car, slamming it into Lara's head, resulting in a fatal blow. Maria and Jess are alerted by a commotion, and upon investigating, they stumble upon the car and the ghastly scene of Lara's lifeless body. They rush to the cabin, where they discover the premises drenched in blood, leaving them horrified. Alice and Zoe break the devastating news to Maria that Lara has been killed. Maria suggests they contact the police, but they are startled by a noise outside, and their fear intensifies when they spot Pooh. As they attempt to comprehend the situation, the cabin's lights suddenly go out. Alice and Zoe attempt to secure the door to prevent any intruders from entering, but Piglet forcefully barges in and knocks Alice unconscious. Zoe tries to flee but falls into the pool, where Piglet attacks her with a hammer, resulting in a gruesome death. Later, Maria and Jess discover Zoe's body and witness Pooh and Piglet abducting Alice. They decide to pursue them into the forest in an attempt to save Alice. The scene shifts to Pooh's hideout, where Alice is being held captive while Pooh indulges in his honey. Alice regains consciousness and becomes terrified when she realizes her predicament. Pooh confronts her and knocks her unconscious once more. Later, Maria and Jess arrive to rescue Alice, but they hear cries for help coming from within the hideout. They discover a gravely injured Christopher and free him before realizing that Charlene is also being held captive. Her husband, Scott, has already been killed by Piglet. The group frees Charlene, but she expresses her desire to exact revenge on Piglet. Charlene lures Piglet to her, but Pooh intervenes, overpowering her and allowing Piglet to crush her to death. Maria and Jess are appalled by the sight and attempt to flee, but Alice chooses to stay behind and incapacitates Piglet with a hammer before binding him with chains and torturing him. Upon hearing Piglet's cries, Pooh rushes back to the hideout, only to find that Piglet has already perished. Fueled by anger, Pooh confronts Alice with a knife and impales her through the mouth, killing her. Maria and Jess flee to the road and manage to stop a car driven by 4 local men to ask for assistance. They inform the men that Pooh is on his way to kill them, but the men refuse to believe them until they spot Pooh's figure in the distance. They are unable to determine whether he is a human or a bear and suspect that some deviants are harassing the girls. The men arm themselves with guns and approach Pooh. Despite hitting him with a crowbar, they fail to inflict any harm. Pooh relentlessly pursues and kills them one by one until Maria attempts to run him over with a car. Pooh manages to climb into the car, causing Maria to collide with a tree and lose consciousness. Upon awakening, she is confronted with the horrific sight of Pooh decapitating Jess. Fueled by fear, Maria attempts to flee but is unable to start the car. Pooh drags her out of the car and attempts to kill her, but Christopher arrives in another vehicle, seemingly crushing Pooh to death between the 2 cars. Christopher rushes to Maria's aid, but Pooh unexpectedly resurfaces and grabs Maria at knife point. Christopher implores Pooh to spare her and pledges to spend the remainder of his life with him in the 100-acre woods. Pooh hesitates, but eventually breaks his vow of silence, whispering to Christopher, "You left before slitting Maria's throat." As Maria slowly bleeds out, Christopher realizes that Pooh is now vulnerable and makes a run for it as Pooh repeatedly stabs Maria's corpse. Thus, the movie comes to an end. If you've made it this far, please consider giving us a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel. Thank you, and until next time.